You know, there's an interesting thing that not everyone notices. Real attraction between two people doesn't start with a touch, a sweet word, or an act of expression. It starts with something more intangible: presence. I used to think that to impress someone, I had to do something special. There must be a catchy opening sentence, a well-timed look, or even a memorable gift. But then I realized there are people who walk into a room and without saying anything, they still make all eyes turn to them. Have you ever met such a person? They are not the most outstanding people in terms of appearance, nor do they need to try to attract attention, but there is something about them that makes others want to be close, want to listen, want to understand them better. That is the power of presence, an energy that you bring with you when you enter a space. It doesn't come from appearance, but from the feeling you create in others. When a woman feels listened to, understood, and appreciated, not by words, but just by the way she be there with her, she will miss you for a long time. Not because of what you did, but because the way you make her feel. In an increasingly noisy world, everyone seems to be trying to say as much, do as much to make an impression. But it is the right silence, the right presence that touches deeper emotions. This doesn't mean you have to be mysterious or aloof. On the contrary, you just need to be alert enough to stop, to listen to a look, to observe a smile, to be completely present with the other person. And you know what's the best part? Anyone can do that. There's no need to change who you are, no need to memorize any flirting scripts. You just need to learn how to return to yourself, be quiet enough to feel, and be sincere enough to connect. When you do that, you not only become more attractive to others, but you also begin to attract truly meaningful things into your life. I want you to imagine this. You're sitting across from a girl. She's talking about her hobbies, whether it's planting trees, baking, or simply how she likes to listen to the rain fall in the evening. And while most other people would nod their heads or give a simple compliment like, "Oh, that's cute," you choose to really stop and listen. Not just listen with your ears, but also with your attention. You see her eyes light up at the mention of passion. You notice the way her hand draws curved lines in the air as she describes her emotions. And in that moment, you see a part of yourself that perhaps very few people have ever touched. This may seem small, but it has great power, because all of us have a deep desire to be loved by someone. Really see myself. Not the appearance, not the easy-to-guess things, but the subtle parts. Sometimes all my life I just hope someone is observant enough to notice. When you are the one who can see that in her, you become different. I'm not talking about being a master of subtlety or reading other people's minds. I'm just talking about complete presence. It's when you're there, completely for her, not thinking about what to say next, not trying to impress, just simply being present and listen. Instead of saying, "You're so beautiful," try saying, "I notice when you talk about teaching children, your voice changes with energy as if that's where you truly belong." A word like that has 10 times more impact than a compliment on appearance, because you don't just see she, which you also see inner world her. I tried this once during a conversation with a girl. She talked about how she loves looking at the stars because it feels like it makes her connected to something bigger than herself. I didn't say much, just nodded and said sincerely, "There's a meteor shower coming up. You might like it." At that moment, I saw her eyes change. Not because I know the ephemeris, but because I remember that little thing that made her feel special. We live in a world where people are accustomed to superficiality. Everyone is in a hurry, quick to speak, quick to answer, quick to evaluate. So when you are human, no hurry, you will become an exception. And that's what makes you memorable. The psychology of dopamine is very powerful when someone feels deeply connected, not because they are praised, but because they are feel. Be seen in a way no one has ever seen. It's like when we listen to a song that touches our hearts without being noisy or ostentatious, but makes us want to listen to it again and remember it forever. So next time you're talking to someone, try doing one simple thing. Really listen. Pay attention to her eyes, voice, and small details when she talks about what she loves. And then, when you respond, don't just repeat what she said. Show her that you see what's inside. It is at that moment that you stop being the person flirting with you and become the person she feels safe opening up to. And once that happens, you won't have to try anymore. The connection will come naturally, deeper and longer lasting than any trick. Have you ever experienced a moment without saying anything? Just a glance, where you felt like you had just told someone a long paragraph? I think everyone has had at least one experience like that, where everything seems to slow down and only the eyes are telling the story. I still remember one time I sat at a small coffee shop. There was a girl sitting at the opposite table, not too prominent, but something about her caught my attention. It's not because she's dressed beautifully or is smiling loudly, but at the moment she looked up, accidentally met my eyes, and then smiled a very light smile. But I remember that moment to this day, because it is not a word, not a clear action. That's one wordless message. We forget eyes and smiles are the two most powerful languages that do not need translation. When you look at someone with a real presence, without worry, without haste, without acting, your eyes will convey a very clear feeling. I'm here with you, and I see you. That, in this busy and hasty world, is more precious than gold. You don't have to stare. Just need your eyes to be soft enough, steady enough, and long enough for the other person to feel your sincere attention. That look should not be too sharp, nor should it be quickly glanced over as if afraid of being caught. It should be the same way you look at a beautiful sunset quietly, enjoying and full of respect. When your eyes are accompanied by a light smile that is not forced or intentional, you can say a lot of things that words cannot. A gentle smile carries the energy of safety, of the feeling of, I don't need to prove anything, I just want to be here. And you know, that feeling is what makes the other person want to open up. Dopamine, a chemical that transmits feelings of happiness, is strongly released every time we feel noticed, connected, and safe. And there's no need for hugs or sweet words to activate it. As long as your gaze stays a beat longer, your smile contains genuine warmth. I want you to try this. Next time you talk to someone, especially someone you care about, put down your phone, stop thinking about what to say next. Just really look at her like she's the only thing you care about at that moment. No need to force, no need to try to impress. And when she speaks, let your eyes answer before the words speak. You will be surprised to see the change, because eyes and smiles are the things that people remember longest than words. They are a silent bridge between two souls, where attraction does not come from form, but from feeling. A feeling of being seen, recognized, and genuinely connected. And if you know how to use them, you won't need to say too much anymore. I want to tell you something small, but if you pay attention, it can change the way others feel about you forever. That is voice your and how you use it. I'm not talking about having to speak really well or cleverly. It's about the rhythm, the tone, and the silences you leave in the story. They can create attraction that even the most beautiful words cannot do. Sometimes it's not what you say, it's you how to say it. Have you noticed that there are people who make you want to listen to them talk forever, even though they are just telling a very ordinary story? Their voices don't need to be as deep as an announcer's, nor do they have to be particularly humorous. But the way their voices gently rise and fall, the times they stop at just the right moment, keeps the listener hooked. It's the art of making people want it. Listen more closely, because it seems like behind those words, there are many things being kept. I once met a friend who had that ability. Every time he spoke, no one interrupted. Not because he said it loudly, but because everyone wanted to know what the next sentence was. He often starts with suggestive sentences like, "There's something I've never told anyone." Stopped for a moment, took a sip of tea, and then continued with a graphic narrative. The way he is, stop at the right time, kept the listener pulled in because we wanted to know what was coming. I learned something important from that. Sometimes, silence. That's what gets people's attention. When you talk too fast, too much, people don't have time to feel it. But when you know, slow down a beat, when you choose your words more carefully, you make every sentence you say carry weight. Think about it when you look at someone and say, "There's one thing about you," then stop. Don't rush to continue talking. Let that silence pass for a few seconds. And then said, "I can't name it, but it makes me curious." That statement isn't just a compliment. It opened up a whole range of emotions in her mind. Because you didn't say it all, you left a part for it imagination. And dopamine, which makes people feel excited and stimulated, is secreted very strongly when the brain does not know what will happen. That is, when you say leaving space, you are awakening her natural curiosity. Try using sentences like, "You have something that keeps me thinking," or, "I have a feeling that there are many interesting things about you that I haven't touched on yet." Don't explain. Don't list. Just suggestive. Let her find the answer herself. It's that incompleteness that makes people want to understand you more. Your voice, if used correctly, can be the thing that makes her remember, not because of what you say that's so impressive, but because of who you are. Evoke feeling, touches curiosity, and leaves an echo. And in moments like these, you're not just communicating, you're creating something that will make her think of you, even after the conversation has long since ended. I know it sounds counterintuitive, but for someone to truly feel attracted to you, you don't have to be present, you don't have to be available. Sometimes even the main thing, you are not there, makes them miss you even more. I was like many people when I first started liking someone. I wanted to text right away, reply immediately, proactively make appointments, always appear present to show my interest. But then I realized when you're too ready, sometimes that makes you become predictable. Easy to guess, less curious. But less curiosity means less emotion. People, naturally, are attracted to things does not belong entirely to me. What is still a bit of a gap? It's like you're listening to a song, and halfway through it stops your brain. Right? Complete the missing part. And the pleasure-inducing chemical dopamine in the brain is released at that moment of waiting. Attractiveness sometimes doesn't lie in how much you appear, but what you create feeling of anticipation. How is it? I remember one time a girl texted me in the middle of the night asking me to go for a walk. In the past, I would have taken a taxi immediately. But that day, I looked at the message, smiled, then waited until morning to reply. I was busy last night, but the idea of a midnight walk sounds really good. Let's arrange it. Not cold, not pricey. It's just that I have my own boundaries. And she's not angry. On the contrary, she began to be more curious about me, about why I wasn't always as ready as others. You don't need to turn yourself into a hard-to-reach person, but you should show that. You have your own life. You have plans, passions, interests, and you choose to share time with someone because you want, not because you need it. When you keep a little distance, you are allowing emotions to form. To the other person, imagine, forecast, expect. Those things create a romantic feeling without having to say anything. I'm not telling you to play lost or act busy. I'm talking about the balance. When you are present, be truly present. When you're not present, let that void be memorable. Because the right distance always makes everything more special. Think about it. When you're easy to find, people get used to your presence. But if you show up at the right time with sincerity, with positive energy, then every time you enter, you make them feel this time is special. And that's what creates real attraction. No need to show off. You just need to know how to create space for emotions to have a chance to grow, naturally and sustainably. There is a very strange but very true thing. The less people know about you, the more they want to know. I'm not saying you have to become cold or unapproachable, but you should keep a little something for yourself that hasn't been told yet, an area that hasn't been clearly revealed so that the other person still wants to explore. That is the power of mystery. I used to be the type of person who thought that in order for someone to like me, I should tell them all about my hobbies, past, future plans. I thought that was sincere and open. But then I realized setting everything up from the beginning makes the conversation boring quickly. There's nothing left to wonder about, nothing to wait for. Humans are attracted to the unknown. Just like when you read a novel, if you knew everything from the first chapter, how interested would you still be? But if that story keeps revealing little by little, layer by layer, you won't be able to stop. I remember a girl once asked me, "What do you usually do on weekends?" In the past, I would immediately answer, I often sleep in, play games, read books." But that day, I just laughed and said, "I have a little habit every Sunday, a kind of ritual that helps me reset everything." Then I said nothing more. She looked at me, tilted her head a bit, smiled, and asked again, "What is it?" I just winked. "Maybe I'll tell you later." And you know what? The conversation that day lasted twice as long as usual, just because an empty space I leave. When you don't finish speaking, you invite the other person to participate in the journey of discovering you. You give them a reason to stay, to ask for more, to remember you after the meeting. And it is in that unknown space that the euphoric chemical dopamine begins to be released. The brain will want to fill in the blanks, will continuously think about what is left open. The more you hold back, the more others will think of you. Mystery is not about pretending or keeping your distance. Mystery is when you share selectively, just enough to create connection, but still enough to keep the conversation moving. Just like music, not all notes sound at the same time. It's the silence between the notes that makes the melody deep and memorable. So next time someone asks about you, don't rush to tell everything. Choose an interesting detail, a suggestive answer, and let the other person hesitate a bit before asking again. When you do that, you're not just telling a story, you're manipulating emotions. And one never forgets such feelings. I believe you have also experienced this feeling when talking to someone, and suddenly there is a question that makes you stop, be silent for a few seconds, then answer with all your heart. It was no longer an ordinary conversation, but one moment of true connection. I realized that the most memorable relationships are not built with questions like, "What do you do?" or "Where do you often go on weekends?" but through conversations that make the other person feel understood, touched at a deeper level. I still remember one time I asked a girl, "Is there any childhood memory that makes you smile every time you remember it?" She was silent for a while. Then he told about a time when he skipped elementary school with his friends, went to catch dragonflies in the rain, and was discovered by his mother. Her eyes lit up as she spoke, as if she were several years younger. But what I remember most is not that story, but the feeling which she revealed. She didn't just say she was reliving that memory, and I'm simply a listener. Deep conversations don't have to be heavy or too serious. Sometimes, just a question that is open enough, gentle enough, and still has depth is enough for someone to remove their everyday shell and begin to truly be themselves. Instead of asking, "What do you like?" you can try, "Is there something you've always wanted to do but haven't dared to try until now?" Or instead of asking, "Are you tired?" try, "What has recently made you feel truly alive?" And when she answers, don't rush to interrupt. Really listen. Listen not only with your ears, but also with your eyes, presence, and sincere interest. Because when someone feels fully heard, they don't just share, they open up. Dopamine, the feeling of pleasure in the brain, is strongly activated when we feel connected, especially when we tell something we rarely share. That's why, after a meaningful conversation, people often remember you for a long time, not because you're good at speaking, but because you're good at it. Evoke emotions. You can mix in light humor after each poignant moment to create balance. For example, after she shares a childhood dream, you could joke, "So you used to dream of being a princess, but now you take your coffee to work every morning. It's almost the same, just with a different crown." The combination of sincerity and wit will make the conversation pleasant, not forced, and make her want to continue. The great thing is, you don't need to know how to talk well. You don't need an attractive voice. You don't need a rich vocabulary. You just want to truly understand the other person. And when you start there, you'll create moments that no one wants to forget. I want you to imagine a situation that everyone has probably experienced. A date where things don't go according to plan. The restaurant you booked was canceled at the last minute. It suddenly rained, and you see her starting to show signs of worry, a little impatient. At that moment, you have two choices. One is to let yourself fall into a state of panic, frantically trying to find a way to correct your mistake. Second, you smile slightly, look at her and say, "It's okay." Sometimes things that go off plan bring the most memorable things. And at that moment, you become different. There is a very real and very strong attraction that comes from calmness. Not the kind of pretending to be calm to look cool, but a true state of stability when you don't let external circumstances control all your internal emotions. When people around them start to get stressed, a person who maintains stability will naturally radiate a type of energy that makes others feel safe. I remember one time when I was traveling with a friend, the bus was canceled midway. My phone ran out of battery, and we got lost in a strange city. Instead of complaining or getting angry, he just shrugged and said, So we got a free adventure. The way he handled the situation made me laugh and breathe a sigh of relief even though I was worried. And I realized sometimes it's not necessary to solve everything perfectly. Just staying calm can change the emotions of the person accompanying you. Dopamine, which makes us feel comfortable and confident, works very strongly when we feel safe. And feeling safe doesn't come from doing anything great. It comes from the feeling, no matter what happens, this person will not panic. And in a world where people are increasingly losing control, people who know how to keep their own pace become a rare fulcrum. You can practice this with simple things. Take a deep breath before answering when feeling upset. Slow down 3 seconds before reacting to an unexpected situation. And when someone is confused, you don't need advice right away. Sometimes just saying, "I understand, we'll find a way together," is enough to calm things down. Body language is also important. Keep your shoulders relaxed, your eyes not tense, your voice even and soft. Don't try to strain, don't force yourself. Just be someone you want to be around too when everything is messed up. The person others will think of when they need a sense of peace. And the best part is, you don't always have to know what to do. You just need, "I know I don't need to react hastily." That calmness not only attracts others, but is also what helps you maintain your strength in any wind. I used to think that to impress a girl, I needed to be serious, mature, and calm at all times. But then I realized sometimes what people remember most is not perfection, but moments. Play at the right time, in the right way. One time, I was chatting with a very smart, sophisticated girl. She said that every morning she must have a latte with the right taste, the right cup, and the right temperature. Otherwise, she won't be able to function all day. I looked at her for a moment and then laughed. "Oh, you're the type of person who, if you don't have coffee in the morning, the world has to go out of your way, right?" She also laughed. Her eyes lit up. "That's exactly right." That story lasted nearly 2 hours just because of the way we were teasing each other. I'm not just talking, I'm play along with her verbally. By observing small details and responding in a witty, natural way. And what I realized is, attractiveness comes from the feeling that someone understands the way I think. Proper teasing doesn't make the other person feel uncomfortable, but it makes them feel noticed. Not in a nitpicking kind of way, but see clearly the little things that few people pay attention to, then turn it into a light game between two people. It's like you're saying, "I see you, and I like the way you're different." Dopamine, the pleasure-inducing chemical in the brain, is not only produced when we are praised, it is also strongly activated when we participate in a mental game. And teasing the mind is one of the simple but effective ways to create that game. It's important that you really observe. Pay attention to the way she tells stories, the things she likes, the little details that others often overlook. Then use it as an ingredient for juggling. If she says she hates losing in games, you can tease, "Then I guess I have to pretend to lose. Otherwise, I'm afraid you'll ban me next time." Or if she keeps forgetting things, you can say, "I'm starting to wonder if you remember my name." The bottom line is this: after the joke, maintain warm eye contact and a friendly smile. Don't turn the joke into a competition. This is not to show off I'm smarter, but to create a comfortable atmosphere where both of you can naturally be yourself. And remember, teasing is only truly effective when mixed with genuine concern. After a joke, you can ask, "But I'm actually curious. How does your favorite coffee taste?" The way you switch between humor and sincerity will make her feel comfortable, safe, and want to continue talking to you more. Finally, remember, you don't have to be born with a sense of humor. You just need to be attentive enough to listen and delicate enough to play with her things I didn't expect you to notice. At that time, you are not only teasing her mind, you are gradually touching her heart. I believe that there are words that we not only hear with our ears, but also feel with our whole mind. There are people who don't need to tell a great story, but just a few sentences can make us imagine a whole world. And that's a possibility. Paint vivid images with words is one of the most powerful weapons in communication. I still remember one time during a light conversation, she asked me, "What do you like to do on the weekend?" Instead of answering in the familiar way like, "I often read books and drink coffee," I tried to do something a little different. I said, "I have a small, winding road in the forest. The afternoon sunlight shines through the leaves, falling on the ground like streaks of color. At the end of that road there is a big rock. Sitting there listening to the wind blowing through my ears, sometimes I feel small, but very peaceful." I still remember her expression when she finished listening. She didn't just nod, but remained silent for a moment, and then smiled. I can imagine that scene, and I know that moment among hundreds of things, it can be said that the thing she remembers the most is the image I created in her head. You don't have to be a good writer or storyteller to do that. Just tell it with your true feelings, and instead of saying "what," say "what does it look like?" How it makes you feel. Because images and emotions go hand in hand, and when you evoke emotions, dopamine in the listener's brain begins to be released. They don't just listen to you, they feel connected to you. It's like when you say, "I'm building something step by step, like stacking bricks on top of each other." It's tiring at times, but I know that foundation is getting stronger day by day. Immediately, you are no longer just someone who talks about your work. You are someone with internal power, images, and depth. Or when she asks about your dreams, instead of answering, "I want to travel to many places," you can say, "I want to stand in the middle of a small village in Japan in winter, snow falling softly on the roof, holding a cup of hot tea, and knowing that I don't have to rush the world anymore." That's how you invite her into your world, a world of colors, sounds, and emotions. And the great thing is, when you do that, you're not just having a conversation, you're leaving imprint. She won't remember everything you say. But if you make her see a picture, feel an emotion, believe me, She will carry it with her long after the meeting. And maybe that very moment will be what makes you different from everyone she has ever met. I used to think that in order for someone to like me, I had to show them that I was truly interested, truly available, truly present in every moment. But the more I grow up, the more I realize that there is something more attractive than care, more than sweet words, true independence. Have you noticed? People who impress us are often people with their own world. They don't need someone to come in to feel complete. They do not seek external recognition, but create their own joy, goals, and values in their lives. And that makes others want to come closer because there is something solid, attractive, and difficult to mistake about them. I still remember a girl once asked me, "How have you been?" Instead of giving a flippant answer like, "It's fine," I said, "I'm taking the time to complete a small project. It's not a big deal, but every day I do a little bit and feel myself progressing step by step. I plan to go trekking on the weekend, want to escape the city for a few days, recharge my energy." I don't speak to impress. I simply shared what I was actually doing, and that shifted the conversation. She started asking more questions, becoming more curious. Not because I did anything special, but because I'm living my own life. A life has its own rhythm, its own color, and she wants to understand more about it. When you have independence, you send out a very clear message. I'm okay, I'm happy, and if you come in, I will share with you and not need you to make me feel enough. Dopamine in our brains is highly active when we see a person having a life, meaning they have something to pursue, to love, to narrate with passion. People like that are never boring. They make the other person feel both inspired and want to be a part of that world. This doesn't mean you have to be successful or endlessly busy. It just means you have private spaces that you cherish, a job you try every day, a hobby that makes you lose track of time, a small dream that you are still quietly pursuing. And when you share those things with someone, you don't need to prove anything, just sincerity. She will feel that. You are not here to rely on anyone. You are inviting her to go on a journey with you, has been walking with his own 2 feet. And that independence doesn't keep you apart. On the contrary, it makes you more attractive because you don't need anyone to be yourself. But when you choose to share that world with someone, it carries more weight than any promise. So together, we have gone through the journey of discovering ways to create attraction without needing a touch, an overly elaborate word, or an obvious action. And I hope by now you have seen that. Real attraction lies not in what is noisy, but in what is very delicate, very human, very real. As long as you are fully present, look at the other person with truly listening eyes. Use words with depth. Maintain composure when things go out of orbit, and especially live a life that is meaningful to yourself. You have created an unforgettable attraction. No need to try too hard, because when you truly understand yourself, love yourself, and live honestly with that, Others will feel that energy without you having to say it out loud. We live in a world where everything happens very fast, very quickly. Real connections are increasingly rare, and if you can be the person who gives the feeling of being understood, seen, safe, not only will you be more attractive, you will also leave a mark on the hearts of others. I don't want you to memorize techniques or mechanically memorize each step. I just want you to start with a simple question. Am I truly connecting with the other person with my heart? If the answer is yes, everything else will come naturally. And finally, if there's anything you take away from all I share, it's this. True attraction is not what you have in your hand, but what feeling you create in the other person's heart. Live honestly, be subtle enough to observe, warm enough to connect, and then you will see you not only attract others, but also attract to yourself things that are deeper and more lasting than you ever expected.